What the hell are you doing?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm looking for video ideas. I'm going through my random junk bin to find, things I can talk about for a video.
That sounds dumb.
What is this? Do not watch crap old 3DS video from 2018. I'm gonna watch it.
An unknown error has occurred while accessing file text-to-speech.exe.
Shut up, you're not even in my videos anymore. I don't know why you're here.
Please restart your PC.
I mean, come on, how bad could it possibly be?
Ah, the 3DS. What was Nintendo thinking? Don't get me wrong. It's a great console, handheld video game machine 3D thingy.
Wow, that was bad. Yikes. I had actually completely forgotten just how bad that was. Jeez. So, back in 2018, I released a video discussing the Nintendo 3DS. This video would actually mark the very beginning of my current style of content. Though that really doesn't excuse the fact that the video was still rather awful. The video was filmed in my bedroom at my old house, with a camera propped up on my bookshelf and a reading light pointed at my face for lighting. Given that my videos have since drastically improved in quality, I thought I'd revisit the topic again. So, without further ado, here we go. Now, just a warning, I grew up with the 3DS, so anything I say in this video is most likely something I like to call a biased opinion. The year is 2010, and the Nintendo DS is really starting to show its age. Since 2004, Nintendo's original DS has dominated the handheld gaming market, but like any firstborn 6-year-old, it was bound to be replaced. Cut to Nintendo headquarters, where the secret society known as the Nintendo Research and Engineering Team was experimenting with the dark arts of 3D displays. You'd think that they would have learnt their lesson and stayed far away from this sort of thing, since this was also the R&D team that was responsible for 1995's Virtual Boy, the device that did so poorly that Nintendo refused to even acknowledge its existence, save for a few jokes at the console's expense.
These games are great!
Introducing the Nintendo 3DS. This thing had it all. Improved hardware, improved design, improved graphics, improved ability to cause eye strain. This thing had everything you could possibly ask for. Except for a reasonable price. At $300, this thing was certainly more than what most people felt like paying, especially since there were so few games that initially released for the system. Wow, for over $300, I can play the flying minigame from Wii Sports Resort and nothing else? Sign me up! Oh, and Steel Diver. Can't forget about Steel Diver. Yay. Yeah, there really wasn't much to play at launch, so you were pretty much guaranteed to find yourself fiddling around on the 3DS menu out of boredom. Not that it would have mattered much to me. Back then I wanted anything and everything that had to do with Nintendo. Yeah, let's just say that my purchasing habits are much more reasonable now. Yeah. Oh my god, is that a Nintendo brand HDMI cable? Yes, it is, but there's gonna be a fee. How much? Give me the Wi-Fi password. Alright, yeah, that's a steal. Here. Alright, thanks. I could have guessed that myself. One more thing. I need your birth certificate. Alright, deal. Here. Alright, awesome. One more thing. I need your social insurance number. Which one? What do you mean, which one? I don't know, I have two. Why do you have two? Never mind, here's both. Thanks, dude. Here you go. Man, this is a steal. This is a grocery list, and this is the Nintendo 3DS operating manual. Luckily, Nintendo thought ahead and made a bunch of apps that were built into the 3DS from the get-go. Sure, they weren't the most complex or deep games in the world, but they were still pretty fun. Mii Maker. Remember how on the Wii you could make little avatars called Miis and they'd show up in Wii Sports? Boom! Mii Maker on 3DS. Done. This was always pretty fun. The one major downside is that there's no option for red hair, which always infuriated me for obvious reasons. I look like the leprechaun mascot from Lucky Charms. AR cards. I kind of forgot about these if I'm being honest. This isn't much of a game per se, as it is a cool tech demo. You have these cards, and when the 3DS camera sees the cards, the corresponding characters suddenly appear in your living room. It's really neat. Unfortunately, I actually lost my original AR cards, so this is actually my driver's license. But the real fun came from the pool and archery minigames, where your room would suddenly distort and turn into different levels where you could play either a pool/golf hybrid or an archery minigame that ends with a boss fight with a cool dragon in your own home. It was really neat. Face Raiders is certainly an experience, that's for sure. So to begin, you take a picture of your face with the 3DS camera, and then this happens. I don't like that. Oh boy. Then suddenly you're being attacked by these flying heads with your face on them. You have to shoot yellow balls at them to stop them from destroying the fabric of reality. Every time they tear a hole in the fabric of reality, that broken off piece of reality debris comes sailing towards you and bonking you on the head, if you aren't careful. Every time you get hit, you take damage. If you run out of health, you die. The goal is to make it to the end of the level, where you fight one of a handful of boss enemies, all of which have your face, and sometimes they try and kiss you. And I don't really like that. You see, that's what video games have been missing up until now. Mandatory restraining orders! Defeat them and you win the level. It's almost like a weird precursor to Pokemon Go in a sense, and it's a ton of fun. But it's so unbelievably odd that I don't even feel like my explanation did it any justice. Regardless of whether or not you can actually stomach the insanity that is Face Raiders, at the very least, the soundtrack is really catchy at times. Actually, now that I think about it, it seems like all the 3DS music was good. Like, really, really good. Like, everyone always talks about the Wii Shop channel music, but what about the internet settings and parental controls menu music? Is that not your thing? What about the Mii Plaza theme? Yeah, this song is awesome. Wouldn't it be funny if someone used this as a backing track for a SoundCloud song? Oh yeah, the Mii Plaza existed. Right. Alright, so guess who forgot to record this section of the script during voiceover time? If you guessed me, you'd be correct. Time to record it now. See, the 3DS had something called Street Pass. The way it worked was when two 3DS systems were nearby, they would exchange information and Miis. Then when you go to the Mii Plaza, you can play little mini-games with the Miis that you've collected. It was pretty neat. Now, unfortunately, these were the sort of games where you'd pop in, play for a few seconds, and then go back to doing something else. They're neat distractions, sure, but once you played them all, the 3DS really didn't have much more to offer. Luckily, Nintendo realized this and dropped the price by a huge margin. Suddenly, everyone started making games for this thing. And suddenly you get games like Super Mario 3D Land, still one of the best 2.9D Mario games and one of the best games on the system. You also get great remakes of classic games like Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D, as well as Star Fox 64 3D. This was around the time that I got my 3DS, Christmas 2011. Might I just say, wow, what a design. Sure, a lot of people prefer the newer models, the new 3DS XL, the new 3DS, and the 3DS XL. And there are always those psychopaths that prefer the 2DS for some strange reason, and I get to laugh at those people and assume that I have better tastes than them. I don't, but I do it anyways. You see, this is the only one where it felt premium and nice, and they weren't cutting corners. It's great. Sure, there are some really dumb parts about it. For some godforsaken reason, the stylus is on the top of the device. Thank you, Nintendo. And the bottom screen leaves an imprint on the top screen. Yada, 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 yada. But I don't know, I like this one. I'm biased, I'm very biased. Now, am I right in preferring the original model over the others? Probably not, but I mean, I listen to Weezer, so I'm pretty much used to having bad opinions. Now, a huge complaint at the time was how the 3DS didn't have a second circle pad, and since the Vita did, everyone thought the Vita would outsell the 3DS. Yeah. Nowadays, the thought of the Vita outselling the 3DS is absolutely hilarious to me. And as such, I've started referring to the PS Vita as the PlayStation Ha! The complaints about the lack of a second analog stick didn't go unnoticed, however, and Nintendo ended up making the Circle Pad Pro, which very few games ever used. Undeterred, Nintendo also released the new Nintendo 3DS, which was literally just the 3DS, but with a nipple. Should I censor that? There was also that time that they released a giant slab of plastic, but I won't talk about that, because I don't own a 2DS. And this wouldn't be a video about the 3DS without talking about the 3DS's main selling point, the 3D screen. Ha! Take that, Nintendo 2DS. You don't even qualify as part of this conversation. Hey Alexa, bring in the 3DS.
Error could not find 3D. S. Bringing G. B. A. Instead.
That's not what I asked for, and you know it. I like it. It was so cool being able to see everything in proper 3D, and it's still pretty incredible to this day. Unfortunately, a lot of people got headaches from it, and some even worried about possible eye damage to young children. Now, did it actually cause vision damage? I highly doubt it. But in all seriousness, I think the 3D screen was really cool. Now, was it enough to sell the whole system? But if done right, it could make games so much more immersive, as well as allow for interesting gameplay concepts that would otherwise be difficult or impossible. And sure, that's cool and all, but I don't actually know how applicable the 3D screen is. I mean, it's not like you can just snap your fingers and suddenly everything's 3D, so making a 3D game must be pretty difficult. Okay, I stand corrected. That's actually really cool. How do I get out? It was an incredible feature if used properly and in moderation, but if simply shoehorned into games, it's a forgettable novelty at best and a headache at worst. What? Moderation? Come on, this is the video game industry we're talking about. They made 2020 different versions of Just Dance. Do you think they know how to stop? Yeah, unfortunately, once people started making games for the system, everyone decided to shoehorn in 3D functionality wherever possible, even if the inclusion either didn't make sense or even hindered the experience. Wow, it's like the crappiness is really there. Now luckily after a few years that trend died down, and most games only use the 3D effects in actually sensible ways. Speaking of the games, let's talk about the games. So as I've already mentioned, not many games were made at first, but once Nintendo dropped the price, that was it. The floodgates were open. For starters, the 3DS was compatible with every single game ever released for the original DS. And I mean, whew, what a relief. I was really worried I wasn't going to be able to play Pop Tropica Adventures anymore. I don't know where I'd be in life without being able to play Pop Tropica Adventures for the Nintendo DS. And it seemed like new 3DS games were always coming out left and right. So many great games ended up on the 3DS, it's incredible. Mario 3D Land, a system seller and the game that put the 3DS on the map. It's pretty linear, with levels being structured a lot like a mix of Super Mario Bros. 3 and Mario Galaxy 2, minus the funky space stuff. But don't let that linearity fool you, however, as this game is a blast to play. Thematically, yeah, this game can be kinda bland, sterile even, and it recycles level themes really often. But there are still many superb levels that shake things up and offer a heaping helping of atmosphere. And either way, gameplay itself is what really matters, and in that regard, this is a phenomenal game. It's also one of the best implementations of the 3DS's 3D screen. The footage may not look too great, but something about actually playing it and using the 3D effect in person makes this game super cool. Animal Crossing New Leaf. Now, sorry Animal Crossing fans, but I really don't play a whole lot of Animal Crossing, simply because I like playing games in lengthy sessions as opposed to slowly chipping away at a game in sessions lasting only 10 to 15 minutes. Despite this, the game is still bursting with charm, and I can certainly see the appeal. If I actually had the attention span needed for these sorts of games, then I think I'd play this game way more often. Unfortunately, it seems like my dog has a longer attention span than I do. I'm pretty sure these games actually belong to my sisters because for some reason I have 2 copies of it. Pokemon X. This was my first ever Pokemon game, and what a game to start with. Now you see, the interesting thing about Pokemon X is that it actually takes place in the Pokemon equivalent of... Oh, sorry, 1 second. Oui, bonjour, Baguette. Donc, quelque chose d'intéressant à propos de Pokémon X, c'est qu'il se déroule en France. Oui, c'est pas exactement en France. C'est l'équivalent au monde de Pokémon. Dans le jeu, c'est la région Kalos, mais c'est la même chose. C'est France, oui. Baguette, baguette. Oui, c'est drôle, non? Nowadays, I've gotten a little tired of the Pokemon games simply because of how little they've actually changed. If you've played one Pokemon game, you've pretty much played them all. To put it simply, playing Pokemon X is like eating the world's finest plate of spaghetti. After already eating nothing but spaghetti for the past week and a half. No matter how good the spaghetti's gonna be, it's still gonna end up tasting a little bland by that point. What the hell kind of analogy was that? Now, you're probably wondering, what about Pokemon Y? Isn't it literally the exact same game? Well, that's a good question. Well, you're correct that they are the same game. One has a blue logo, and the other has a red logo. And I'm allergic to the color red, so that makes Pokemon X at least 100 times better. You idiot! You have red hair! Oh. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time 3D. Or as I sometimes call it when I'm trying to annoy my friends, Laws Oot D. It's a remake of Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64, which is a game where a small child named Link tries to assassinate a foreign diplomat who is also a wizard through the use of a drunk flute full of magic. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Legend of Zelda series, and I've played nearly every single game, including Tingle's Rupee Land. What a mistake. But seriously, I adore the Zelda franchise, and with that in mind, you may think that I love this game, and have nothing bad to say about it. No, not in the slightest. This game is really good, don't get me wrong, but it can be slow, sometimes unbearably so. It's linear, it takes itself very seriously, the controls are stiff, and it kinda lacks the exploration that the Zelda series is known for. Thankfully, most of these issues are fixed in the 3DS remake, so that's pretty awesome. Thanks to the enhancements on the 3DS, the game is actually quite fun now. It's still not perfect, with the first few hours of the game still feeling like one ginormous fetch quest, but at least it's no longer as slow, tedious, and tiresome as a Final Fantasy game. I just publicly criticized Ocarina of Time and Final Fantasy on the internet. Huh. I'm a dead man. There was also Majora's Mask 3D. Majora's Mask was way better to begin with, but I can't say much about it as I've probably already angered 95% of the internet by ragging on Ocarina of Time. So, to turn around and start praising the game's edgy little brother would be about as dangerous as drinking and driving while on the set of a Jackass film.
Is this Skull Kid gonna die ever?
Probably not. Imagine being so lazy that instead of actually gathering footage of Majora's Mask for a video, you just start playing on a Majora's Mask TF2 server. Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's basically just Pokemon X and Y, but instead of France, the game takes place in Hawaii. They also partially removed the cool Mega Evolution mechanic that was introduced in X and Y, which is kind of a bummer. The in-game explanation is that Mega Evolution wasn't healthy for the Pokemon, so it's been very toned down in Sun and Moon, which is really funny, considering that the Pokemon games take place in a universe where it's social norm for parents to let their 11-year-old children run around the country in a quest to enslave the local wildlife so they can use them as weapons against other 11-year-olds, the Mafia, and literal gods. So I'm not sure that the mechanic was removed purely because PETA was having another temper tantrum at the expense of their own reputation. Mario Kart 7, the #1 best-selling game on the system, selling nearly 20 million copies and receiving critical acclaim across the board. I don't own this game. I've heard it's really good, and I love Mario Kart. So why haven't I bought the game? I don't know. Mario Maker. This game is awesome. After years of criticism towards the simplicity and uninspired nature of the new Super Mario Bros. Games, Nintendo went, well, if you think you're so smart, how about you just make your own damn Mario games and save us the trouble? Bam. Super Mario Maker. People went wild with this game, creating some of the most creative Mario levels ever. Some people even made music levels, others made ping pong, and one guy even titled this level Mario Robs a Bank and Goes to Prison for some reason. I made that level. This was considered the Wii U's killer app, and the 3DS version isn't that far off. In the 3DS version, you have everything from the original, as well as new modes. The only downside is that you couldn't upload your own levels, which was a little annoying, but it didn't affect me much. This game is phenomenal. Donkey Kong Country Returns was the long-awaited triumphant return to the Donkey Kong Country series. Amazing level design, great music, great challenge, this game had it all. The 3DS version is widely considered to be the best version of the game for two reasons. One, it lacks the slightly inconvenient motion controls of the Wii version, and two, the 3DS is portable. This is it! Humanity has peaked, you can play Donkey Kong on the toilet, there is no topping that! Meanwhile, at Sony headquarters.
Ha ha ha! Now that we've released our PS Vita, we are one step closer to world domination! See you later, Nintendo. You're toast.
Warning. Core overheating. Nuclear meltdown imminent.
What is it? What's happening?
Nintendo just released a new game, sir.
What's so bad about that? I thought the 3DS wasn't selling very well.
Well, sir, it's portable Donkey Kong. It's really
You don't mean toilet Donkey Kong?
I'm afraid I do, sir.
Please prepare for reactor core meltdown.
Dear God.
We're doomed. We need to get out of here!
Now that we've established what I consider to be the cream of the crop, this is my 3DS library. As you'll notice, there are certainly some odd ducks. Sure, I got staples like Super Mario 3D Land, Mario Maker, and Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, but then I also have 2 copies of Ben 10 Omniverse 2 as well as Goosebumps the video game. But seriously, the 3DS had an absolutely killer library, arguably one of the best handheld devices in terms of game library and backwards compatibility. Speaking of backwards compatibility, what if the regular DS library just isn't cutting it for you, and you really want to dive deep into some older games?
Are you tired of not being able to play your favorite games on modern consoles? Well, do I have a product for you. Introducing the Virtual Console. Now, you can play all of your crappy old games on the newest devices available to mankind, aka the 3DS. This is the future of technology. No, the future of gaming. In fact, it's the past. Literally, these are old games. Why did I think this would be funny? This was really dumb. This was really dumb. Why did I do this? This was a lot of effort. I don't know why I did this.
So, during the Wii and Wii U eras, Nintendo would digitally re-release older games under the Virtual Console moniker at usually decent prices. Who the heck would pay $7.99 for a poorly optimized version of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 when you could play the free Christian Whitehead version on mobile phones, which is the best version to play other than the fact that it's on mobile phone, and it's completely free? Who would pay $7.99? I would. I would do that. I did that.
Ooh, listen to the crispiness on that.
And the 3DS continued this trend with a boatload of amazing older games. It was awesome being able to play classic NES and SNES games outside. And that's actually how I beat the original Legend of Zelda for the first time. And that's not all though, as the 3DS expanded upon the virtual library by adding Game Boy and Game Boy Color games to the service. Sega even added support for Genesis games, as well as the long-neglected Sega Gag Reflex, Sega Game Gear. This was great. Not this though, this was pretty horrendous. So many great games were playable. Mario Land 2, Wario's Eviction Notice, Mario Land 3, Wario Steals Some Rent Money, Donkey Kong 94, Pokemon Good Edition, Pokemon Anime Edition, Pokemon Poor Color Choice Edition, Bionic Commando, Pink Gumball the Godslayer 1 and 2, Shantae, Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, Link's Awakening DX, Tetris, Kirby Tilt and Tumble, Pokemon Pinball, that one Kid Icarus game that everyone forgot about, and the list goes on and on and on. The system's library was such a huge force to contend with, and this was so close to being the ultimate handheld gaming machine. I say almost because the 3DS was lacking one specific feature that most people wanted: Game Boy Advance support. Sure, the 3DS had Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, but not the GBA, which felt especially strange since the original DS could play GBA games. The 3DS was an upgrade in every single way to the DS, so it's not like the system wasn't powerful enough to run GBA games. So what gives? Honestly, it just seems odd that the one system that made the most sense to have on the Virtual Console was the one that was outright removed. In fact, the 3DS did actually get a handful of GBA games in the form of the Ambassador program, which was when Nintendo gave out a handful of free GBA games to 3DS owners who bought the system before the price cut. Still, GBA games only came to the 3DS through the very limited Ambassador program, and for people who got the 3DS after the price cut, it was impossible to play GBA games on the 3DS. Now, Nintendo's excuse for not putting GBA games on the Virtual Console was that they simply couldn't get the games to work right on the 3DS. Which doesn't make any sense, since the Ambassador program disproves that excuse. What the heck, Nintendo? Come on! But even without GBA support, the 3DS was still the ultimate portable gaming device, hands down. Excluding the Switch. Come on, that's not a fair comparison. Now, let's check in on our good friend, the PlayStation Surely, with everything Nintendo was doing to ensure the success of the 3DS, Sony must have also fought back with killer features of their own, right? Alright, so hear me out. No, you don't get any of that cool stuff, but I can make up for it. If you buy a Vita, and you live in the States, you get to pay full price for a second mobile data plan for your game console, exclusive to AT&T. Why are you booing me? I'm cool. After all, the Vita was way more powerful compared to the 3DS, so who knows? Maybe it was neck and neck. Well, if you thought that was bad, take a look at the North American statistics. Man, that's almost depressing. Oh well, to each their own, I guess. While some people like being awesome, other people like not existing. The 3DS was just an all-around great device, and I don't think we'll ever see something quite like it ever again now that the Switch has filled the need for a handheld device. Honestly, the system just exudes charm, and with such an enormous game library, I'm still constantly coming back to it and finding new things to play even after it's been discontinued. That's incredible. And I truly think that it sits right at the top when it comes to great handheld game consoles. Sure, the Game Boy was revolutionary in terms of handheld gaming, and the DS was a ridiculous runaway success. But the 3DS is essentially all of that and more, because it retains the games that made its original predecessors great, while having its own unique and new games on top of that. It retains what made the older generations great in the first place, but adds on top of it with its own unique games. It's a win-win, honestly. It's the ultimate handheld gaming device. It felt like the first handheld device capable of having gameplay that wasn't held back by hardware limitations. Prior to the 3DS, handheld versions of a game were usually a huge downgrade compared to the home console versions. But the 3DS changed that. Instead of having a downgraded version of Mario Kart, it had Mario Kart. Instead of having a downgraded version of a decades-old Mario game, it had a proper Mario game. Instead of having an interpretation of Donkey Kong Country, you had the best version of it. Instead of getting ear damage, you got eye damage. It was awesome! The late Gunpei Yokoi once stated that he first got the idea for a handheld gaming device when he saw a businessman mindlessly playing with a calculator out of boredom while taking a train ride to work. Yokoi then went on to create the Game & Watch line of devices, little electronic games that could fit in one's pocket, and he eventually would go on to invent the Game Boy. Decades later, and the 3DS feels like the ultimate evolution of Yokoi's initial vision, a game device that you can whip out of your pocket on a moment's notice and just cure your boredom no matter where you are. It's the ultimate device for long road trips or travel. No. It's the ultimate dedicated handheld game device. And the 3DS will be missed. To quote every single IGN review I've ever seen, it has a little something for everyone. Wait, hold on a second. Why am I acting as though this thing is gone and dead? I still have my 3DS. Yeah, I've had this thing since 2011. It's still going. It'll probably last me till like the heat death of the universe or something. Why am I acting like the 3DS is gone or that it's dead? Sure, Nintendo's not supporting it anymore, but I can still play it. I still have all the games for it. Walmart still sells 3DS games. You can still buy a 3DS secondhand. Why am I acting like it's dead and gone? Why did I write the script this way? Oh shoot, that was my outro, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing where I fall and just.
My knees!
Wait, I'm running.
Arthritis is kicking in! Dear God.
We're doomed.
You don't mean toilet Donkey Kong? Okay, that's... This is so stupid!
You got way too into it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't mean... You're acting like the world is about to end.
Well, for me it is.
Well, yeah,
This is the end of Sony Entertainment.
Yeah, it's like, toilet Donkey Kong!
You can play Donkey Kong on the toilet.
Yeah.
It is I, the Wahoo himself. Superb Mario Man. This is stupid.
I'm afraid I do, sir.
Dear God.
We're doomed. We need to get out of here!
Go.
Alright.
I see how that looked. That was probably really bad. That hurt my knees.
I sound constipated. God, we need like Neocortex voice actor in here. Like you know, like Dr. Neocortex.
Yeah.
We need that guy to do this. Like
You need that guy.
Crash Bandicoot. What on earth are you doing here?
Sony PS Vita.
And fun fact, something really cool about the Virtual Console is it actually has a copy of Rekka 92 on it, which is really cool because back in my Venturer video, I was talking about Rekka 92 and how the Venturer ripped off Rekka 92 in its game Star Ally, which was like the one good thing on the Venturer. So now that I have the actual Rekka 92 game instead of Star Ally, I don't need the Venturer anymore. I can get rid of it. Damn it.